We are taught from a young age that the world is a dangerous place. We are told to lock our doors, to watch out for strangers in dark alleys, to be careful who we talk to online. We build walls to keep the bad guys out. But what happens when the danger isn't outside? What happens when the bad guy is the person who wakes you up with coffee every morning? The person who raised children with you, the person who holds you when you cry. This is not just a crime story. This is a story about the absolute destruction of reality. Today, we are going deep into the case of Gisèle Pelicot, a woman who lived a life that many envied, only to discover that her entire existence for the last decade was a lie constructed by her own husband. This case is long, it is complicated, and it is terrifyingly real. So, get comfortable, because we need to talk about what happened in that house in Mazan. Let's start with the people involved, because on paper, they were painfully normal. Dominic and Gisèle Pelicot were high school sweethearts. They met in the early 70s. Imagine that era, young love, building a future from scratch. They got married, had 3 kids, and eventually 7 grandchildren. Dominic worked in the nuclear industry. He was a technical guy, respected in his field. Gisèle was the heart of the family. Friends described them as inseparable. They were that retired couple you see hiking on weekends or hosting dinner parties with perfectly cooked meals. In 2013, they moved to Mazan, a quiet, sleepy village in Provence, France. It was supposed to be their paradise. But shortly after the move, things started to change for Gisèle. And this is where the story gets incredibly dark very fast. It started with small things. Absences. Not physical absences, but mental ones. Gisèle would be in the middle of a conversation and suddenly blank out. She would wake up in the morning feeling exhausted, as if she hadn't slept at all, even though she had been in bed for 10 hours. Over the next few years, this mystery illness took over her life. She described it as falling into a black hole. She would have dinner with her husband, and the next thing she knew, it was morning. But the mornings weren't normal. She felt groggy, dizzy, almost hungover. There were terrifying incidents. One time, she fell asleep while playing with her grandchildren. Another time, she literally fell asleep at the wheel while driving. Can you imagine the fear? She stopped driving because she was terrified she would kill someone. Her physical appearance changed drastically. She lost weight, becoming frail and thin. Her hair started falling out in clumps. She became nervous, anxious, and jumpy. She looked like a ghost of her former self. She did what anyone would do. She went to doctors. Not just one, but many. Neurologists, general practitioners, gynecologists. She underwent MRI scans, CAT scans, blood tests looking for viruses or autoimmune diseases. She was convinced she had a brain tumor or early onset Alzheimer's. She was preparing herself to die. But every single test came back negative. The doctors were baffled. They told her, "Gisèle, physically, you are fine. It must be stress. It must be depression." They even suggested she was drinking too much alcohol without realizing it. And here is the most twisted part of this chapter. The person taking her to these appointments, the person holding her hand while she cried in the waiting room, it was Dominic. He would look at the doctors with sad puppy dog eyes and say, "I'm so worried about her. She's just not herself." He watched her suffer. He watched her lose her mind. So, what was actually happening? While Gisèle thought she was losing her mind, Dominic was running a highly organized operation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. This was cold, calculated, and industrial. Dominic was using a powerful anti-anxiety drug called Temesta, lorazepam. He didn't just give her a pill. He would crush it into powder and mix it into her dinner, usually into warm dishes where the taste would be hidden. He perfected the dosage. Too little, she might wake up. Too much, he might kill her. Once she was in a chemical coma, which is different from sleep, by the way. In a coma, you don't dream, you don't move, you are basically a breathing doll. Dominic would go to his computer. He used a website called coco.gg. It was a French chat site known for being a dark corner of the internet. It wasn't the dark web, but it was unmoderated and sketchy. He created a profile and posted explicit invitations. But he had rules. He called them the protocol. If you wanted to come to his house, you had to follow strict instructions. Park your car near the school, not the house. Walk through the dark path so neighbors don't see you. No perfume and no smell of tobacco, because Gisèle might smell it when she wakes up. Warm your hands on the radiator before touching her, because cold hands might shock her body. Think about the level of control here. He wasn't just inviting men over. He was directing a movie. He filmed everything. He categorized the files. He labeled them by the man's name, the date, and the acts performed. And the men? We'll get to them later, but let me tell you, they weren't tricked. Dominic told them clearly, "She is my wife, she is asleep, and she doesn't know." And they came anyway. So, how did this decade of horror end? You might think a neighbor heard something, or one of the men confessed. But no. The universe has a strange sense of humor. The massive house of cards collapsed because of a cheap, stupid mistake. September 12th, 2020. Dominic was at a supermarket in a nearby town. He was caught by a security guard while trying to film up a woman's skirt with his phone. It seemed like a pathetic act by a perverted old man. The police arrested him, confiscated his phone and laptop, and went to search his home. When the police opened his computer, they weren't looking for a major crime ring. They were just looking for more creeper shots. But then, they found a file. A file named Abuse. Simple, direct, terrifying. Inside, they found 20,000 photos and videos. They were meticulously organized, folders named by year, by the man's name, by the type of act. And in every single one of them, the victim was the same woman, his wife, Gisèle, unconscious, lifeless, like a doll. Let's freeze time for a moment and go inside that police station. It's November 2020. Gisèle is sitting in a cold, sterile interrogation room. She is annoyed. She is confused. In her mind, she is there because her foolish husband took some inappropriate pictures at a supermarket. She's probably thinking, "My husband is an idiot, but he's not a criminal." The lead investigator walks in. He looks tired. He looks at Gisèle with a strange mix of pity and seriousness. He sits down, opens a file, and says words that no wife ever expects to hear. "Madame, the photos we found on your husband's computer, they are not just of strangers. They are of you." Gisèle's first reaction wasn't horror. It was denial. Absolute, angry denial. She actually laughed at the officer. She told him, "You are mistaken. My husband loves me. He is a gentleman. He is the man who holds my hand at the doctor's office. He would never hurt me. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Her brain simply refused to accept a reality that destroyed 50 years of memories. She told the police, "I am a light sleeper. If someone touched me, I would wake up. Impossible." But the officer didn't argue. He just turned his laptop screen around. He didn't show her everything at once. He showed her just one image. In the photo, Gisèle was lying in her own bed, wearing her own pajamas. She looked peaceful, like she was in a deep sleep. But then she noticed the details. Her body was positioned strangely. There were hands on her, hands that didn't belong to Dominic. And then she saw the timestamps. 2011, 2013, 2017, 2019. This wasn't one bad night. This was a timeline of her entire life in Maison. Imagine the silence in that room as the realization hit her like a physical blow. The puzzle pieces of the last 10 years suddenly snapped into place. The morning headaches? That was the drugs. The memory loss? That was the coma. The feeling of going crazy? It wasn't Alzheimer's. It was him. Gisèle later described this moment as the end of her life. She said, "In that second, everything I was, everything I believed in, turned to dust. I fell into a bottomless hole." She realized that the man she had shared a bed with for 50 years, the father of her children, had been looking at her not as a wife, but as a piece of meat to be traded. She didn't just lose her husband that day, she lost her past. Every happy memory, every family dinner, every holiday from the last 10 years was now tainted. She realized that while she was smiling in family photos, he was planning the next night's horror. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was a theft of her soul. We need to talk about the men. And I don't mean Dominic, I mean the others. Because this is the part of the story that will make you look at strangers differently. When police identified the visitors, they didn't find a gang of seasoned criminals. They found us. They found society. Let's look at the roster. Among the 51 men standing trial, we have a firefighter, someone whose job is to save lives. We have a journalist, a prison guard, an IT project manager, a nurse, a municipal counselor, even a man who worked at the very supermarket where Dominic was arrested. Some of these men were single, but many were married. Fathers, grandfathers. They would kiss their wives goodnight, drive to Maison, participate in a rape, and then go back home to sleep in their own beds. It's the banality of evil in its purest form. But here is where it gets infuriating. When they were arrested, almost all of them used the same defense. They said, "I didn't know it was rape. I thought it was a libertine game. I thought she was pretending to sleep." Let's analyze that for a second. Dominic had strict rules for them. He called it the protocol. He told them via chat, "Park far away so the dogs don't bark. Do not smoke. Do not smell of cologne." And the most chilling one, warm your hands on the radiator before touching her. Why? Why warm your hands? Because cold hands might wake her up. If this was a game and she was pretending, why would it matter if she woke up? The rules themselves prove that they knew she had to stay unconscious. Some of these men came once, but others came back. 2 times, 3 times, 6 times. Some even brought their own wives' lingerie for Gisèle to wear while she was comatose. In court, one of the accused said, "I acted like a coward." Another said, "I turned off my brain." But the most disturbing part isn't that they are monsters. It's that they are terrifyingly ordinary. They proved that under the right circumstances, normal men can do unspeakable things if they think no one is watching. September 2nd, 2024. The Criminal Court of Avignon. The world's press is waiting outside. Cameras, microphones, flashing lights. Inside, 51 men are sitting on the benches. Most of them are hiding their faces with masks, hoodies, or folders. They look small. They look scared. And then, she arrives. Gisèle Pelicot. Walking through the crowd, she has a sharp bob haircut and wears dark sunglasses. She doesn't cover her face. She doesn't look down. She walks right past the cameras with her chin up. Inside the courtroom, the presiding judge asks a standard question. Given the horrific, sexual nature of the crimes, the law offers the victim total privacy. The judge asks if she wants the trial to be held in camera, behind closed doors. No public, no press, just the lawyers. This was the easy way out. This was the safe way out. But Gisèle stood up, and in a voice that shook the entire country, she said, "I have nothing to hide. They do." She demanded a public trial. She wanted the names, the faces, and the details to be broadcast to the world. She delivered the line that has now become a slogan for women everywhere. Shame must change sides. The trial of the Mason rapists isn't just a legal case. It's a mirror held up to society. It showed us that monsters don't live under the bed. They live in our living rooms. They are fathers, grandfathers, and husbands. Dominic Pelicot will likely spend the rest of his life in prison. But no sentence can give Gisèle back the 10 years she lost. No verdict can erase the chemical fog or the stolen memories. However, Gisèle won something bigger than a court case. She won her narrative back. She refused to be just a victim in a police file. She became a titan. As we close this file, I want you to look at the thumbnail of this video one more time. Don't just see a crime story. See a warning. And see a survivor. This was a tough one, I know. Thank you for staying with me through the darkness. If you think Gisèle's bravery deserves to be known, share this video. Let's make sure her message reaches everyone. I'm Nikki, this is Story Jungle, and I'll see you in the next investigation. Stay awake, stay safe.